Hey, this is Jamie with Stonemaier Games, and this is both my weekly live cast and our monthly e-newsletter live cast, which is super special this month. Last month was a little slow. This month is crazy busy because we have a ton of stuff to talk about this month, a ton of big news to talk about. With the biggest being, and I'm going to be a little distracted here because I don't have any other administrators in my in the group yet, so I'll just focus on you. I'll accept members into the group later. But basically, we have a new game. The game is called Tapestry, and it is a civilization game designed by me. It's the first game designed by me that we published for a while, and it looks like this. This is Tapestry. The art is done by Andrew Bosley. You might recognize his style from Everdell. And there are sculpts by Rom Brown. I haven't talked about the components in the game yet, but that hints to you the types of things that might be in this box. It's a big box. This is it's kind of a standard size box in terms of width and length, but in terms of height, it's 10 centimeters, which is about 3 centimeters higher than normal. Usually our game, like if you have wingspan, it is a 70 millimeter box. This is a 100 millimeter box because there's a lot of stuff in here. You probably have tons of questions, which I love and I appreciate. And you can feel free to ask them. I probably won't answer everything today because over the next 2 weeks, both in the Tapestry Facebook group and on our website, I'll double post. I will post information about the game, more information every day. I'll reveal a little bit more, kind of design diary style, and tell you more about it. But feel free to let me know what you're curious about. If I feel comfortable answering, I will. So yeah, this is Tapestry, a civilization game designed by me, and I did reveal the player count and things like that. So it's 1 to 5 players, ages 12 plus, and 90 to 120 minutes. And I would describe this, I've avoided using this word epic, because epic can mean a couple different things, but I've been describing it kind of in my head, really, because I haven't talked to many people about this game, as epic in scope, in that it is a civilization game where your civilization develops from really the beginning of mankind up through the future. So it's not just a little piece of history, it's a huge chunk of history, and you are writing the history yourself in this game. This isn't based on real world people, real world events, real world places. Real world technology is in here, but not associated with real world people. So you are basically telling the story of your own civilization. You're telling your own history in the game. And I don't think I mentioned it, but it is a competitive game. So you're not cooperating with other players. You are competing against them. Let me see what questions I have, and then I'll share a little bit more. There's something else I want to show you on another box that I have over here. Looks like I've missed quite a few comments already. Let's see if there are any questions that I missed. Nathan says, what kind of presents, if any, will Stonemaier have at PAX Unplugged in December? No presents that I'm aware of. There might be a retailer who has our stuff, but Stonemaier Games won't be there in any official capacity. Let's see. Suzanne says, when can we buy it? So right now I'm saying early September. There are a few factors in play there. Right now the game is on boats headed to fulfillment centers worldwide. So we've already made this game. This is a complete finished game. Production is complete, and we are now shipping it to fulfillment centers. I don't know exactly when it's going to arrive, though. And so I've been hesitant to, at this point, to reveal an exact date. But I will do that in the future. Right now I'm just saying early September. That's when we'll do the pre-order date, and we'll start shipping almost immediately after that to anyone who pre-orders it. I'm going to make a note about that, Suzanne, to have an official announcement at some point. Charles says, can I discuss how I ended up collaborating with Andrew Bosley for the art? Did I specifically seek him out for the game? Yeah, so Andrew Bosley, artist of Everdell, is indeed the artist of this game. And after I saw his work in Everdell, I knew I wanted to work with him. And it seemed like a great fit for Tapestry because Andrew can do, like his style, I really like the style, especially for a civilization game. I like that his style can be grounded in reality, but also have a little bit of a fantastical edge to it. This isn't a fantasy game, but it does delve into the future a little bit. So I wanted the ability to step a little bit outside reality. But it was wonderful to work with Andrew. He was really, really great to work with, and I hope to work with him again someday. Pablo says that his fiance and I are right now on the road, and you're listening to me while you're driving. Well, drive safely, but thanks for listening, Pablo. Let's see. I'll answer a few more questions, and I want to show something to you in a second. Let's see. Leo says, Ludology said that I like 2 to 6 players. I do indeed like games that play from 2 to 6 players, and really it's 1 to 6. I develop multiplayer games, but I like to put the solo element in our game. 1 to 6 is ideal, but with Tapestry, this is, I won't reveal the price yet, but this is a very expensive game. And it's also a game where most turns are very quick, but there are a few specific turns you're going to take in the game that take a little longer, that can create some downtime. And so 5 players seemed like the best maximum for this game, both in terms of price and how you actually play the game. Let's see. Ernani says, am I going to show you any components today? No, not today. Today I'm just showing you the box and talking about kind of general aspects of the game, but I will start to get into those details tomorrow in the Tapestry Facebook group. Noel says, are there any cat illustrations hidden anywhere in the game? Noel, you know that I love Easter eggs in games, and yes, indeed, my cats do make an appearance in this game, maybe even 2 appearances. I'm definitely sure of one of them. There are 2 different types of Easter eggs that you'll find in the game, and I know the cats appear in definitely one of them. Jacob says, who is the artist? The artist is Andrew Bosley, and sculpts in the game are by Ram Brown. A few of you have asked about that, so hopefully I'll answer that question for anyone who's asking. And if I miss any comments, feel free to, or miss any questions, let me know below. Facebook is scrolling real fast through here. Yep, real fast. I'm definitely missing comments. Someone said, is Tapestry 4X? Exploration, yes. Exploitation, like gathering resources, yes. Extermination, there is direct conflict, but not you're not eliminating players' pieces from the board. I don't like that style of extermination. And what's the last one? Exploitation, whatever the 4th X is. Oh, like technology stuff. Yeah, that's in there. Yeah, just to let you know, Facebook is definitely scrolling past a ton of questions here, and I guess a ton of you are live right now. Wow, this is the biggest live video I've ever had. So I am unable to see a ton of these questions. So if I miss them, definitely repost. I'll try to get to them. Alvin says, is there some type of currency in the game? There's resources, but not currency. Brian says, am I going to make the rules available in the coming weeks? Yes. At the end of the 2-week reveal period, I will make the rules available. Marco says, how many copies are in the first print run? Marco, I'm glad you asked, because that's the thing I wanted to show you on this other box. This is an NPC from Tapestry. As you can see here, we have individually numbered the first print run. So you know exactly how many copies are in the first print run. There are 25,000 copies, and every copy in the first print run, the English print run, is individually numbered. So no, you cannot pick your number, but whatever copy you get will be individually numbered, and it will be special in that way forever. You'll have the only copy of the game that has that number on it. Someone said, and again, I'm missing a ton of these questions. Facebook is just scrolling right past them. Someone says, what made you want to design a Civilization game? And really, it's I love the idea of Civilization games. I've played a bunch of them. I have played a little bit of the video game, but that came after I decided to design this game. And I played other Civ-style board games. But the thing that, I don't know, I love the idea of building a civilization from scratch. The reason that I wanted to contribute my my thoughts to my version of a Civilization game to this genre is I really wanted one that isn't attached to real world history or figures. I don't want to recount a real world history. I want to create my own civilization that I want to create my own history, my own civilization. And I wanted to give players an opportunity to do that as well. There are a few games that do stuff like that, but a lot of Civ games are tied to real world history. And so I wanted something a little different from that. Yoa says, when does Tapestry arrive in Portugal? I don't think we do have localization partners for the game. I don't think we have a Brazilian Portuguese partner for it, but not a Portuguese partner for it. Joven says, to what game can I compare it to? So on our website, I say that if you like Russian railroads, if you like A Feast for Odin, and if you like, what was the other one I compared it to? And if you like Mombasa, none of which are really civilization games, but they all have mechanical elements that you will find familiar in Tapestry. Someone says, Stinge says, will it be available at Essen Spiel? And yes, it will be there, not just to demo, but also to buy. We have some partners who will have their localization versions, and Matago will have the English version for us at Essen. I won't personally be there. Willie says, so less conquering and more advancing your own individual advancement or civilization. The conquering is a part of the game and expanding on a map. If you look at Instagram, you can see that there is a hex map in the game. And there is direct interaction between players on that map, but I won't go too detailed into how that works right now. But it's even though you can conquer, you're not really hurting other players all that much. I will say this: I would say that Rado, who does not like direct conflict in games, he read the rules and he said, "I'm interested in playing this game." So Rado is getting an advanced copy to review in time for the early September pre-order. So that might speak to you as to the level of direct conflict in the game. Jesse says, how does this game compare to Scythe? It has a strong sense of progression. Scythe is an engine building game built on elements of progression. Both have mats where you're kind of pulling stuff off the mats and putting them elsewhere. In terms of weight, I would say Scythe is a little bit more complicated. In comparison, okay, Scythe has a 32-page rulebook. Tapestry has a 4-page rulebook. So I've really focused on having a very streamlined rulebook in Tapestry and letting the complexity emerge from the civilizations, from certain cards in the game, from decisions that you make. But the actual learning of the game and knowing how to play the game is very streamlined into that 4-page rulebook. Christian says, what kind of mechanisms can we expect? I'm going to get deeper into the mechanisms in my upcoming design diary videos. Let's see. Okay, so I mentioned that it's similar to Mombasa and Russian railroads. They're not similar to, but it has some common elements. And the common element shared by those games is that tracks in this game are a huge part of how the game works. So you're advancing on tracks to essentially take actions and to get better and better actions as you advance on those tracks. So that's the commonality between those games. Ben says, how much did our game of the Golden Ages influence this one? Yeah, so Ben was kind enough to teach me the Golden Ages at Geekway 2 years ago, Geekway to the West 2 years ago. And Ben, it definitely had a very positive impact on how I designed Tapestry. I would say the biggest thing is the Golden Ages does something cool where it does look a little bit into the future in terms of developments and technology. And so I did that same thing in Tapestry. So Tapestry starts at the beginning of mankind and ventures a little bit into the future. Let's see. I know, again, I'm missing a ton of your questions because Facebook is just scrolling past them. There are so many of you here today. I don't think Facebook is used to this. So I'm missing them. Feel free to repeat them if you want to hear the answer and if I'm not answering them by somebody else. Someone says, what is this, a legacy game? It's not a legacy game. Someone said, what's the playing time and player count? Tapestry is a 1 to 5 player game, playable in about 90 to 120 minutes. Greg says, is the Facebook group live yet? Yes, it's called the Tapestry Board Game Group on Facebook. Peter says, what's the best place to follow the game? I would actually say the Tapestry Board Game Group is a great place to follow it if you're on Facebook. It's also on our website, so you can follow it there if you want. But the Tapestry Facebook group is probably the best place to do it. It's also on Board Game Geek now. Brandon says, what weight would I apply to the game? I'd say 3. George says, do I need a bigger table to play the game? I think a regular size game table, like I have a standard Jasper board game table back there. It fits well on that table. The board is pretty big, but not huge. The biggest part of the player mats, there are some big mats in front of you that take up a fair amount of space. Oh, the code name. Andrew said, what was the code name for this? So this is code name. I've been calling this code name Clay. And the reason for that, the reason that I use that term Clay, is that the game really started to form in my head after I saw some miniatures designed by Rom Brown that were made out of clay, and that kind of struck me as the right aesthetic style for the game. And so that's why. And clay is kind of, clay is associated with the beginnings of mankind, the beginnings of civilization. So codename Clay is Tapestry. Shane says, can we see the back of the box? No, you can't. Well, I mean, you could, but I'm going to try to avoid showing it to you. Let's see. Mose says, is there a campaign mode? No, there's no campaign mode. This is a game that you sit down, you play one session, you build a civilization in 90 minutes to 120 minutes, and then you start over and build another civilization the next time you play. Jose says, are there high-quality components? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, all of our games, I think, have pretty high-quality components. This game, I think, might best all of them. So I'm not going to reveal them today, but and I don't want to hype them up too much. They're for you to judge, but I am personally super excited about the components in this game. Dylan says that the link on our website is directing to Wingspan. And I'm trying to find that, but I'm not replicating it. I'm letting our web developer know right now. Sorry about this. Sorry about the. Okay. Socrates, will the solo mode be Automa? Yep, it will be. Yeah, you can see it right there in the box. Automa Factory right there is the solo mode in the game. Arthur says, how much time did the game spend in development? When did I start working on this? It's been a while. I would say maybe 18 months. I don't even remember when I began. It's been a while. Bill says, I also mentioned A Feast for Odin, and what's that comparison to this game? Again, I'll get deeper into this in a design diary post, but A Feast for Odin has that board where you're placing things on the board to, like in Feast for Odin, you're placing kind of abstract things like money and jewels and gems. So it has a spatial kind of patchwork element to it. And there is something like that in this game, but also a little different in this game. But if you enjoy that spatial element in Feast for Odin, that's what I think will resonate with you in Tapestry. And also, there are a lot of actions in Tapestry that you choose them in a very different way than in A Feast for Odin. In A Feast for Odin, you can pretty much choose any action if you have the available workers. Actions work a little bit different in Tapestry, but overall, there are a lot of actions that you can choose from in the game. Joseph says, am I going to do a favorite mechanism in Tapestry? And yes, I will. I usually do that on either the pre-order date or the release date. I think I usually do it on the release date, so that'll be a while. Dana says, are there game trays? There's no official game tray in here, but we did design a custom tray for this game. Yeah. Ben says, are there any expansions planned? I'm just announcing the game today, Ben. I do have an expansion that's been percolating a little bit in my head, but we haven't really done much with it. Yeah, nothing yet. James says, are the rulebooks the same material as in Wingspan? And yes, they are that same material. We're trying to use that material for all of our games now because I really love it. Rob says, trickling out information, marketing strategy or just fun for me? Mostly marketing, but it's also fun for me. I like to do things that are fun for me. Leo says, where can I get one of these sweet Stonemaier shirts? I sell these to Stonemaier ambassadors twice a year. So if you want to sign up as a Stonemaier ambassador to kind of support our brand worldwide, it's free to do that. You can do that on our website, Stonemaier Ambassadors. And then twice a year, I offer the shirts for sale to our ambassadors. Dave says, are there multiple paths to victory, like science, military, technology? Yes, but they're all consolidated into victory points. So it is a victory point game, but there are many different ways to get those victory points. And all of them, or many of them, lead to, not lead you to, but give you the choice to go deep down a certain path in the game and gain victory points from doing so. Let's see. Sorry, as I said, Facebook is really scrolling through these questions so fast that I can't keep up with them. Florian says, will Stonemaier Champions have a chance to pre-order before the mass pre-order? No, the way we work is everyone pre-orders at the same time. The champion orders are prioritized. They are shipped first, but everyone pre-orders at the same time. Grant says, will there be multiple versions like Scythe? Nope, there's just one version, and this is the version that we've already printed. It's already done. So hopefully that's clear. If anyone's asking, like, will we change anything about this? No, we've already made the game. It's on the boat right now, heading to fulfillment centers. Marcel says, how many civilizations can you build in the game? You are building one, each player is building one civilization that grows from the beginning of mankind into the future. So one civilization that's evolving and changing and growing over time. Nick says, where does the game fall on the complexity scale? I put it around a 3, but I would say it's relatively, I mean, it's up for you to judge this, but the rulebook is only 4 pages, so it's very easy to understand the core mechanisms of the game and just start playing. George says, when are pre-orders available? It'll be early September. Jeff says, when's the retail release date? I'm not going to release that yet. I'm not going to say that yet because we'll hold off on that. Someone asked, what's the optimal number of players? 1 to 5 players. It's a 1 to 5 player game, so 1 to 5 players who want to play a civilization game with you. Panagiotis says, will there be pre-orders or also a Kickstarter? No, we don't do Kickstarter anymore. We just make stuff and we sell it to you, and then we sell it to retailers and distributors. JB says, what are the dimensions of the box? It's the same dimensions, width and length as the Wingspan box. It's about 30 centimeters, and then the height of the box is 10 centimeters, which is taller than the Wingspan box, which is 7 centimeters. Cass has a non-Tapestry question. This is nice. Actually, and I should bring up some other news before I continue with Tapestry. Cass says, how's my New Zealand trip planning going? It's going really well. Thank you for asking. Yeah, I'm planning a trip with my girlfriend in New Zealand in a few months, and so I've been gauging ideas about it. He says, what made me finally decide to go? Really, it was a combination of my desire to go and my girlfriend's enthusiasm to go to New Zealand and my desire to go there with her. So the other 2 big bits of news that I mentioned in the newsletter, other than the Kennerspiel, which I've already mentioned in other live casts, is that 2 digital versions of our games were announced. They're not ready yet, but they were announced in the e-newsletter. One is for Viticulture Digital. That's being done by Digidiced. They are working on this game. I've played the beta version. It's coming together really, really well. And the other is by Monster Couch. They are doing the digital full AI version of Wingspan. And so they announced that today as well. I'm really excited about both of them. I haven't played anything about that one yet. I think that one's still in fairly early development, but they're moving quickly. And I am really excited to see what people think about both of those games. I think I've been waiting for Viticulture Digital for many, many years, and Wingspan has been moving very quickly, but I'm really excited about that too. Marcus says, will there be different language versions? Yes, Marcus, Tapestry will be available in a number of different languages. I typically leave it to those partners to announce information about that, about their versions of the game. Alexi says, how language dependent is it? I would say fairly language dependent. There are a number of cards that have English text. There's the civilizations have English text on it. Those are the main 2 parts. Actually, the board doesn't really have much text on it that you need to read, but a certain type of card and the civilization mats in the game do have text that you need to read on them. Will the non-English versions be numbered? And the answer is no. Only the English versions will be numbered. Jose asked for the MSRP. I won't reveal that for a while, Jose, but that'll come in early September when we do the pre-order. Dave says, are the individual players based on colors, meaning does each player have an assigned color? Not an assigned color. You choose your color and you play with that color. Gavin says, are there copies being sent to distribution centers around the world, somewhere close to New Zealand? Not distribution centers, but fulfillment centers, yes. We have a fulfillment center in Canada, the US, Australia, and the UK. So currently the game Tapestry is on the boat to those different, let's see if I can just put it on the desk here. I'll kind of do. It's being sent to these fulfillment centers around the world so that it'll be ready for the early September fulfillment. That's better. Now I don't have to keep holding it up. Tapestry. Isobel, can I please explain a civilization game generally? That's a good question. A civilization game, in my mind, is one where you are building, a civilization that spans a decent scope of time. So opposed to a game where you're building a village, yes, it might be the start of a civilization, but it's taking place. That's just like one little slice of time. So a civilization game covers a scope of time and a scope of technology over many years, in my opinion. Renee says, am I going to the locations used for Lord of the Rings in New Zealand? And yes, Lord of the Rings is a major motivation for why I want to go to New Zealand. Matej says, will there be variable player powers from the start? Yes. I'm not going to announce how many yet there are, but there are quite a few variable civilizations. Each player will have their own civilization with an asymmetric power, and there are quite a few of them in the game. James says, cost expectancy. I know the cost of it, but I'm not revealing that yet. Similar to any prior Stonemaier game. Similar in that most of our games have the idea of progression in the game and simple enough rule sets that you can learn a few key rules and start taking turns right away in the game. Those are commonalities between our previous games. Isabel says, will the digital version be available on iOS? I'm guessing you're talking about Viticulture and Wingspan. There's no digital for Tapestry yet, but Viticulture Wingspan, yes, it will be available on iOS. Jonas says, what languages will it be published? A bunch of different languages. I'll let our partners announce that, our language partners. And he says, is it language dependent? And yes, it is language dependent. Alexia says, what about gameplay mechanisms? I talked about a few of those in the video. I don't want to repeat too much here, but for the most part, I'll be discussing them in the design diary post over the next 2 weeks. But it is largely an engine building track progression game with strong elements attached to, I don't know, some card play. There's some interaction on the map. A lot of stuff going on. I don't want to say too much here or really too little. So I'll stick with too little and get into the details in the coming days. How much does it weigh? This is a 2.8 kilogram box. Chris says, speaking of digital games, how do you know? Oh, there goes your question. Facebook is just scrolling past all the questions. I'll have to look. Okay, I'll have to scroll down a little bit so I can catch up. Remy says, is the game going to have exclusive content? No, we don't do exclusives of Stonemaier games. Ernani says, is this the most expensive Stonemaier game? This will be the most expensive Stonemaier game. Yeah. Martin says, is there a yellow player color? I do believe so. Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Jose says, why the name Tapestry? That's a good question. So you can see the tapestry is right there on the box. The idea behind the tapestries in the game is that over in history, civilizations have often told their stories or recorded their histories on tapestries. Banners like this, different forms are in medieval cultures or really across the world. It's not always on a tapestry itself, but usually there's something like a tapestry that cultures have recorded their histories on over time. And so players are telling their own story in this game. They're telling their own, they're recording their own history essentially. So I thought that was a nice word to use. And I just like the word. George says, a grade for replayability. I would say it's extremely replayable, but it's hard for me to be the judge of that. I wouldn't design a game if it's not extremely replayable, basically. JP says, what makes me the most proud about Tapestry? Ooh, that's a good question. The most proud. I'm pretty pleased with how the rule book worked out. Like to create a complex civilization game with a ton of asymmetry, a ton of options, a ton of emergent complexity, and opportunities for players to tell their own story, but only have a 4-page rule book. It is, I mean, you can end up being the judge of whether or not that was long enough for the rulebook to be, but I'm really happy with how that focus of mine on a very streamlined rule set that ties back into how I designed the game. Like I designed the game to be a streamlined, easy to teach, easy to learn game. I'm pretty proud of that. Will Tapestry have events that happen? No, this isn't a game where stuff happens to you. This is a game where you make stuff happen. Peter says, are language editions part of the first printing? Kind of, yeah. There's an English printing that started, and then we added other languages to it, and so they're essentially part of the first printing. By the time the worldwide release date happens, which I have not revealed yet, it will be available on that day in a number of different languages around the world. Gavin says, how long ago did I have the idea for this game? I've wanted to design a civilization game for a long time, but I think I had the original idea for this game around 18 months ago. Chad says, will Rodney Smith do a watch it play video for it? And yes, we have commissioned Rodney to do that. He should be receiving this copy any day now, his advanced copy. We also sent advanced copies to reviewers. Go to Leave says, will it be solo playable? Yep, you can see Automa right there on the box. It is a 1 to 5 player game with an intelligent solo opponent. Brad says, is there more than one board shared between the players? No, just one game board shared between the players, and then each player has their own different player mats. Jeff says, any other content creators making videos? Yeah, a few videos, a few bloggers. I think there's a podcaster in there. In total, we're sending out 11 advanced copies. We've already sent them out. I think they went out yesterday. Rob says, what's my definition of expensive? I don't want to give away the price of the game, but expensive to me is, I don't know, anything over 70 is fairly expensive to me. Matthias says, will it have many wooden pieces for resources and such? Will it have cards? It does not have wood in the game. It does have cards. Steve says, any similarities to Civilization: A New Dawn or Through the Ages? Which would it lean closer to? Both of those games, especially Through the Ages, follows real-world history. So that is not what happens in this game. The mechanisms are completely different from those games. I wouldn't say both of those games. Through the Ages has some punishing elements. A New Dawn, I really love the action selection mechanism. I didn't use that in this game, though, because it's already present in the Civilization game. I would say it's not really similar to A New Dawn much at all, but it does have a map. Maybe that's the one commonality. Through the Ages, and Through the Ages, I guess you are kind of telling the story of your civilization through cards, and that is a big part of the story that you'll tell in Tapestry using cards. So that might be one commonality there. Seth says, have I played last year's Sands of Time? There's a Civ game about chronicling your civilization. No, actually, I have not heard of Sands of Time, Seth, but I'll make a note of that. Sands of Time. Taylor says, how likely are anachronisms going to happen? Like a soldier with a gun fighting against a soldier with a bow and arrow? That's a great question, because that's a big part of this game. Not on a exact like little token, like there aren't pieces portraying soldiers or anything like that, because the game is pretty epic in scope. You're not capturing like little moments you're not interacting with individual people in the game, basically. But like there aren't soldiers on a map, is what I'm trying to say. But the game is very much about a little bit of some wacky things happening. Like you might really develop your technology, but you might not develop your military at all. You might really develop your science, but you might forget completely about developing your exploration abilities. So at the end of the game, you might be still rowing around on wooden boats, but in terms of science, you are what's the on the science track? Let's see what happens on the science tracks. You might be interacting with aliens or going through time travel, stuff like that. I'm sorry, I'm missing some questions here. I'm missing a ton of questions. So definitely repeat your questions. Facebook is just scrolling right past them. Aaron says, how big will I expand Tapestry? As big as Scythe? I don't know. We'll see how Tapestry is received. Bob says, what makes up most of the cost in Tapestry? You will soon see that, Bob, but I'm not going to talk about that today. Alan says, who's the cover artist? The illustrator in the game is Andrew Bosley. Sculpts are by Rom Brown. Ringo said, Jeff says, what's the randomness factor in the game? There's very little randomness. There are some elements that bring up variability, but there's not, luck doesn't play a factor in the game, is basically what I'm saying. Max says, will I soon have a tapestry on my wall behind me? I should get the art on this printed on a tapestry. That would be pretty cool. Let's see. Gavin says, will it be on Tabletopia? We'll see. I haven't heard from Tabletopia yet about it, but we will see about that. Mohammed says, is it safe to say the game has a sci-fi element? It does venture a little bit into the future. So in terms of speculative sci-fi, there's a little bit of that. Yeah. Could I repeat the release date? Joaquin, I haven't said the release date. I'm not saying that yet. Ryan says, I came up that all my designs have one word titles. Is that a preference of yours or a coincidence? It's pretty intentional. I like the one word title. It's simple, it's clear. You can say it in one word. You can search for it pretty easily as long as I choose the right word. Yeah, so I'd say that's intentional. Matt says, has there been any movement on my idea for the Red Rising board game? Yeah, I've been working quite a bit with a co-designer on my Red Rising game. And we're waiting to hear back from some lawyers about something in regards to that game right now. Miles says, have I started the new Red Rising book? I have not, Miles. I'm still finishing up another book that I want to finish before I dive deep into that, which is just kind of bad timing. But I'm really excited to dive into it as soon as possible. Christian says, does it have miniatures? I will kind of answer that by saying that the box says Sculpts by Rom Brown. Brian says, how much are things that you build expressed through cards versus sculpts? The things you build in the game are expressed through miniatures. Yeah. Dane says, level of luck, very, very little luck in the game. There is variability and some randomness, but not really luck. Martin says, will it be available at Essenspiel? And yes, it will be available both to demo and to buy at Essenspiel. Let's see. James says, how difficult is it to tell who is winning throughout the game? There is a victory point track, but a lot of the points are scored, kind of like in Russian railroads, a lot of the points are scored in the last few income turns of the game. It's not really rounds, but income turns. And so it's pretty difficult to see who is in the lead who will be in the lead at the end of the game based on your current position during the game. Bob says, what makes up most of the cost in Tapestry? Oh, you're repeating questions. I appreciate repeating questions. I already saw that one. I will answer that soon, but not today. JD says, Polytopia. No, I haven't played Polytopia. Marcel says, is there carpet included in the box? No, there's no actual tapestry included in the box. William says, how much player interaction will we find in this game? There's actually a fair amount of player interaction. It's not conflict or combat style player interaction, but there's a lot of things like being the first to do something or the first to get something. There are a certain type of card in the game that interacts with other players, but not in a negative way. It's very much positive player interaction in the game, which is that's my style of design. Seth says, what are my thoughts on reprints? I'm just a general question. I'm guessing you're asking what are my thoughts on reprints. My philosophy is if there's demand for a game, I'm happy to reprint it. So if you're seeing demand for a game that you're involved with, Seth, I don't know. I don't like to create. I know this might sound weird after Wingspan, but it's not true. I did not create artificial scarcity for Wingspan, but I don't like artificial scarcity. I'd rather just, if people want stuff, I'd rather just make it as long as people want it. Richard says, will there be upgrades available through my partners? This game will not need a lot of upgrades. So I'm sure people will come up with some creative stuff, but they might be hard-pressed to upgrade some of the stuff in this box. Alan says game length is 90 to 120 minutes. And I think you said, I missed, the question is already gone, but I think you said something about, are you racing to the finish? No, you're playing, you're taking a certain number of income turns, and then the game is over for you when you've taken your final income turn. Julian says, am I the only designer for this game? I am the only multiplayer designer for this game. My name's on the box, but the Automa team developed the solo version of the game. Matthew says, pre-order date for Metal Mechs. Yeah, Metal Mechs are actually traveling at the same time as Tapestry to fulfillment centers worldwide. So I'll probably do those pre-orders together for the second printing of Metal Mechs and for Tapestry. So if you want both, start saving up some money because they're both pretty expensive. Kim says, open the box. I'm not going to open the box today. Seth says, does Tapestry have all 4 X's of 4X? I believe it's so. I think people often debate the extermination element. There is direct conflict in this game, but you're not moving around soldiers on a map. You're not destroying things other people built up. So that part will always be debatable. But there is direct interaction on a map in Tapestry. Dana says, Between Two Castles and Metkin Ludwig is more than one word. That's true, but I did not design that game. Isabel, how do I respond to everyone on media and run a company and create new games? I've kind of made my life around it. That's pretty much my life right now. So it's a priority for me. Chad says, what other work has Rom Brown done? I don't think he's worked on any other game yet. I don't actually even think he's on Board Game Geek right now as an artist. But he does custom sculpts for people who want them for their games. Is there a catch-up? Brian says, is there a catch-up mechanism? Not like a rubber banding catch-up mechanism. And I know I just missed a question below Brian. So whoever had the question right after Brian, please repeat it. I'm sorry, Facebook is just scrolling right past them. We're coming up on 1,000 comments pretty soon. So there's not a really catch-up mechanism in the game. No, just no, I wouldn't say there is. I don't think like I tried to design it so it's pretty balanced. There's a lot of different paths you can take that are competitive, but in the end, I think the most skilled player will win. And I didn't think that we needed a catch-up mechanism for making I didn't think we needed a rubber banding mechanism, basically. Chad says, are there any different species factions? No, it's a human game, so it's not based in the real world, but it's based in what could have been the real world. Cameron says, what do I want to do differently with the Civilization game? The main thing that I mentioned earlier in the video is that I wanted to create a Civilization game that isn't based on real world history or events or people, things like that. I wanted players to design their own history in a world that still feels very much like a real world. So players are telling the history of their civilization as they grow it from the beginning of mankind into the future. Sam says, do the cards stay in your hand? I missed the rest of your question, Sam, but no, most cards don't stay in your hand. Drew says, how's the interaction compared to Food Chain Magnate? It's been a long time since my one play of Food Chain Magnate. I would say it's not quite as interactive on the board as Food Chain Magnate is. Ed says, would I rate Scythe and Wingspan on a difficulty level so I can anticipate? I would put Scythe as like a 3.5 on difficulty and Wingspan as maybe a 2 or 2.5 on difficulty, Tapestry being a 3. James says, is there a mythology in the game? No, not really. No, it is its own world, but it's based kind of on the real world. Really, I wanted to create a template for players to tell their own story of their own world. And that's what Tapestry is, kind of a blank slate for that. But it enables those stories in a number of different ways, especially the different paths you can take and the different paths you can forego in the game. Jose says, will we be able to proofread cards and stuff to avoid typos? If you want to. I think we put this through a pretty rigorous typo process. And obviously the game has already been printed, so too late to correct typos if there are any in the game. Gerald says, did I print 10,000 copies in the first print run? No, Gerald, we actually printed 25,000 copies, and you can see it right on the box. Every first printing English copy will come individually numbered out of 25,000 units. Let's see. Eric says that he thought it was odd that MeepleSource was the face of Stonemaier Games at Gen Con, along with all of Stonemaier Games volunteers, a lot of people who volunteer for our company. And Eric says, wondering if the strategy will continue at future large events. I think it's likely that that'll happen, yeah. Brian says, would I consider this the Civilization game that I've always wanted? And I would say yes, it is. Obviously, I design games for a lot more people than just me, but this is a Civilization game that I've been wanting to have and to play for a long time. Christian says, can I show you the backside of the box? I can, but I'm not going to. Dave says, is every civilization human? Yes, they are all human civilizations. Are there civilizations that will be left in the box when at full player count? Yes, there are a ton of civilizations in this box, asymmetric civilizations. And so the majority of them actually will not see play even when you're with a 5-player count. Elaine says, is the arch a feat or building that you can make or do? It is not. It's something that I've talked to the sculptor about, but it currently is not. The arch does make an appearance in the game, but is not a sculpt in the game. We're talking about the St. Louis Arch, where Stonemaier Games is based. Let's see. Chad says, what's the chocolate for the day? Oh, yes, I'm glad you asked, Chad. I don't have it in front of me, but the chocolate of the day are Tim Tams. A creator from Australia sent me sent me his game. And let's see if I can read the name of the game. I think it's, I can't see it from here, but he sent me a box of Tim Tams, which have been very delicious and tempting to eat over the last few days, and I'll continue to eat them, unfortunately, until they run out. Matthew says, are there different races? Yeah, there are different asymmetric, not races, but cultures in the game. There's civilizations, different civilizations that each player will have, or each player will have one of them. Brendan says, I wanted to know what extent this game has a narrative feel as opposed to a mechanical feel. This is a game designed for players to tell the stories of their own civilizations that they want to build. I've kind of enabled that mechanically so players can tell those stories, but it isn't a game where the game is telling you the story itself. You are telling your own story through the mechanisms in the game. Brian says, do you play as the same person? No, because this game takes place over thousands of years. So you are, I don't say like godlike, but you essentially represent a lot of different people guiding the civilization over time, not just one individual person, because of the scope of time involved. Kevin says, did I already say that it uses a modular board or not? The board it's a singular board, but you're placing tiles on the board, so the board will look different every time you play. Matthew says, when can we see it played? You will see it played later in August and in early September. Gavin says, how does the tech tree work? Well, I haven't said there is a tech tree yet. I've said there are tech tracks. There really isn't actually a tech tree in the game. The tech tree is broken down into these different tracks in the game. It'll feel like a tech tree, but it also doesn't look like a tree. Arthur says, can I choose where you start on the board, or is it tied to civilizations? One of the mats that you are randomly given in the game is your capital city mat, and that mat will determine your starting position in the game. Seth says, is it best with 5 players? I think it's best with 1 through 5 players who want to play a civilization game. Chad says, is this game one of my Quentin Tarantino's 10 games? So the idea being that I have the rough idea of maybe designing 10 games in my lifetime, designing and publishing 10 games, and then leaving it at that. And yeah, Chad, this is my design, so that would fall into that area. I think this is number 5 for me. Let's see. Christian says, will this have a new setting or world like the 1920 plus one inside? This has a world, but it's really up to players to define and to create that world. So it doesn't have as strong of a sense of place as Scythe does in its 1920 alternate universe. Isabel, are you the deity of the civilization or the leader? You kind of what I said a minute ago, you represent different people throughout the course of the civilization. Eric says, why are the boxes individually numbered? Because it's cool. Actually, it's not on this box, it's on my other box, but because I think that adds a little special element to a box, that you have a box that is individually numbered that only you have, so it's a little unique to you. Nick says, are there any Easter eggs on the board? And yes, there are a ton of Easter eggs on the tiles and in some of the cards in the game. Julian says, what will the differences be between the English version and the translated one other than the language and the limited number? Other than that, nothing. Just the language, and only the English versions have the limited number on it. Elaine says, are there cyborgs? There are not cyborgs in the game. Ralph says, check. Sorry, someone mentioned something that shouldn't have been mentioned here. I'll check that. Gavin says, is there a modular board? There is a board that you place tiles on that over the course of the game as you're exploring the board that become modular, but it's not like a preset modular board. Jacob says, are there different environments? Yes, but mostly just aesthetic. They do tie to your capital city thematically, but it's not like, there isn't like troop movement in this game, and it's not a game of moving around figures on a board that have different requirements when they go through snow or mountain. That's not that type of game. Edward says, when's the pre-order? That's early September. Max says, what's the one thing that makes this civilization game different than any other? Well, there are really a couple different things, but the main thing is this core element I'm talking about how it's not tied to real world history, how you can take very different paths in the game that that don't necessarily even make sense. Like you can develop a technology way far into the future, but leave behind another type of technology way in the past. So it's a game designed so that you can tell the story of your own civilization, not tied to real world history. I know that's not a very mechanical answer, but the things that do that are mechanical in the game. And the tracks, the way that I use tracks in this game, I don't think I've seen used in another game. Christopher says, have I done a Tim Tam slam? I've been dipping, I don't drink like tea or coffee really, so I've just been dipping the Tim Tams in water, which works pretty well. Tobias says, when I say it's not grounded in reality, how do I identify with and relate to your faction? Well, it's not grounded in real world history and real world events, real world figures, but the constructs in the game are inspired by the real world. Renee says, is there chocolate in the game? I actually don't think there's any chocolate in the game. No, that's unfortunate. Renani says, I said that it's a victory point game. Yeah, it is a victory point game. Does it have a fixed number of rounds or end game triggers? Basically, each player will take a certain number of income turns throughout the game, but at their own pace. So it's not a game where you play around to the game and then it's done. Everyone does the same thing. The flow of the game is that you just continually take turns until all players are done taking turns. Dom says, are alliances possible? It is possible for you to form alliances. There are some cards that encourage that a little bit or create the possibility, but mostly it'll happen organically or not at all. Judith says, what inspired the theme for me to make a civilization game, or where and when did I get that inspiration? I've kind of wanted to make a civilization game for a long time. I love the idea of building something from over many different ages and across many different technologies. I love that idea, and I love how other games have implemented that. But I also wanted to put my own flavor on it and do something a little different than what those games have already done. So that was a big part of the inspiration. Evan says, are there major changes from the last version of the Automa playtesting to the final published version? Probably, yeah. I mean, there are changes. I'm not particularly involved in Automa. I'm the multiplayer game designer, but there were changes made throughout all the playtests. So anyone who playtested the game, I'm sure they will discover something new in the final version that they didn't know about or didn't experience in the playtests. Dennis says, are there engine building elements in this game? Yeah, very much. There's a lot of progression and engine building in this game. So Joe says, comparisons to Hadara. I don't know. I haven't played Hadara. Sam says, how punishing is the game? Not really punishing at all. I don't really seek punishment in games that I design. Andy says, do Biddy and Walter like it? Yeah, I'll have to get a photo of them in the box. They do like the boxes. Grant says, how early in time are we starting? We're starting at the beginning of mankind, really. Ernani says, how about the AA batteries that I posted on Instagram, or AA batteries? You said they were the biggest hint, and I still don't get it. The hint there, the reason I posted those batteries, is up to that point, I posted photos kind of older cultures, older things, and the batteries were to show you that this was a game that's not just about the old, but also about the present and the future. That's what I'm conveying through that battery image. Alan says it's not, oh, no, sorry, Facebook took away that question. I'll have to scroll down a little bit. I'll scroll down. I'm definitely missing questions here, but I'm trying to make sure Facebook doesn't skip me. Lee says, do I know that there's a game called Tapestry from 2005? I do know that there's a game from 2005 that has like 3 ratings on Board Game Geek. I'm not too concerned about that. And plus, we have the trademark on it. Cody says, how much extra does individual numbering cost? It's not very expensive to add individually numbering to a game. It's more of just a special thing that I like doing. Shalene says, did I mention anything about pricing? I have not mentioned anything about pricing other than it's the most expensive game that we will have due to certain components that are in the box. So Brendan is talking about the AA batteries. There's an image of AA batteries that I put on Instagram. There are not actually batteries in this box. There's no batteries in here, no electronic component in this game. Seth said, did Tapestry have a bunch of test groups like Scythe did? Was it hard to keep them quiet about it? Our playtesters are actually pretty good at keeping things quiet. Some of them are a little more eager beavers than others, but they're pretty good about that. It did not have as wide of a scope of Scythe, but we still got through several hundred playtests of Tapestry using different groups around the world, different waves of blind playtesting. Dan says, do you control or build multiple cities? You have one capital city that you are focusing on. That's your main focus, but you are spreading out throughout the world and kind of abstractly building cities, but it's mainly the one capital city that you're focusing on. Arthur says, did I draw inspiration from digital games like Age of Empires, Rise of Nations? Mainly just Civilization, really. Civilization, the digital game, was the digital inspiration. Let's see. Richard says, will I release high resolution of the different tapestries for wallpapers? The tapestry cards in the game, I don't know if they're big enough to be wallpapers. They're just cards, so I don't think they're big enough to be wallpapers. Jacob says, oh no, not a question there. Na says, which of the game components what I said turned out to be the most beautiful? There's one in particular that I'm excited to share. I haven't revealed it today, but I'll reveal it in the near future. Isabella says, is turn order clockwise? And yes, turn order is clockwise in this game. Julian says, if a player discovers a technology, can other players discover the same technology, or should they move on to another one? That's a great question in the game. Again, that's another thing that I'll save for a more mechanical discussion, but basically, there is an element of the game where you can benefit from technologies that other players have discovered. I'll say that for now. That's a good way of summing it up. Chad says, is the size of the board similar to Scythe? No, it's a little smaller than Scythe. It's a 4-fold board, and it fits into this 30 by 30 centimeter box. Kyle says, will there be a My Little Tapestry? We don't have plans for a My Little Tapestry at this point, but that's a fun question. Arthur says, is there diplomacy? Organically, yes. Through a few of the cards, yes, but there isn't like a diplomacy mechanism in the game. Noel says, are any of the Scythe factions a potential society? No, it's a completely different world than Scythe. Jamie says, will there be a way to get a specific number? No, the game will be individually numbered, but there's no way to give people specific requested numbers. Chad says, how stressed out are you when launching a new game? Somewhat stressed, usually based on technology. I want to make sure all the links work and all the stuff is up and running, especially when I jump onto this Facebook Live. I don't know if things are working or not. So I will return hopefully to some emails from people like my web developers saying that things are working. I'm looking at them a little bit right now. Richard says, do I have any plans on making a Seafaring Nautical themed game? I don't currently have plans for that, Richard. No, I don't. Wendy says, is there an action to take the first player marker, or do I just play in clockwise order? Yeah, players, it's my style of game where you just start taking turns and you can continue to take turns in clockwise order until the game ends for all players. So there are no rounds, there's no first player necessary in this game. Claudio says, is there diplomacy, interaction, negotiation mechanisms? In a organic way for the most part, yes, but not, I would say mechanisms, no. It's more organic, saying like, okay, if you don't bother me here, I won't bother you there. Is this a campaign game? No. Drew says, I seem to indicate choosing multiple. Oh, Drew, your question just went away. I'm sorry. Facebook is just scrolling like crazy. It said something about, are you choosing mats? You do have a choice between a couple different civilizations at the beginning of the game. Otherwise, the mats are randomly assigned. Jamie says, are Biddy and Walter in the game? They do. Werner says that I said the first print will be 5K. No, Werner. The first print run of Tapestry is 25,000 copies. 25,000, not 5,000. Please get that right. I don't want that misinformation spread. 25,000 is right there. Take a screenshot. 25,000 units in the first English print run of Tapestry. Jason says, have I cleared Alex Goldsmith to talk about this on Dukes of Dice? I have not, no. Reviewers and people like that can't talk about the game until later in this month. Peter says, would I compare this game to Civilization: A New Dawn? Not really. No, I wouldn't compare it much to that, other than both claiming to be Civilization games. But Civilization: New Dawn is more of an empire building game, in my opinion. Yes, you are developing technologies over time, but the interaction, the way you're kind of walking around the world, feels more like empire building to me than civilization building. Jonathan says, is there combat? Not really. There's conquering in the game, but there's no combat back and forth between players. Vladimir says, when will the release date be? I haven't revealed that yet. Mike says, is there player elimination? No player elimination here. Alum says, will there be negative technology such as mass murder biotechnology? Not really, no. There is the invention of a certain technology in the game that is definitely bad. I think like the nuclear bomb makes an appearance, but it's not with the intention of hurting other players or things like that. Jonathan says, is the insert designed to hold sleeve cards? The insert is actually not there for cards. The insert is there for other things. So no, but not relevant for this insert. Peter says, there's something like a bird tower in Wingspan, a big thematic component. There are some big thematic components in this game, yes. 1000 Year Beard says, I hope there's hot air balloon miniatures like on the box art. Can I divulge? No, in this game, they're not like troop or unit miniatures like that. That's not what we're going for in this game. It's not a units on a map type of game. Felipe says, can I show the components of the game? I can, but I'm not going to show them today. I'm going to spread them out over the next 2 weeks. Amy says, what component am I the most proud of? That's a good question. I mentioned, I kind of alluded to there being sculpts in the game, so there are miniatures in the game. I would say that they're the component I'm the most proud of. You'll see what I mean soon, just not today. Chad says there'll be no writing in this game. Yeah, no writing. Marcel says, is there communism in the game or other political currents or ideas? There are a number of cards in the game that represent different pieces, not of history, but different ideologies and different like important, I don't say moments in history because they're not connected to real world history, but different ideologies for your culture, I guess. And I'm not sure if communism is one of them. I think socialism is one of them in the game, that you can play a socialism card. It does a certain thing, and then you move on to a different ideology later. But I'm definitely not pushing any political agenda in the game. Chris says, do I enjoy playing my games after they're published? Yes, sometimes it's a little stressful because I really want people to like them and have fun with them. But after I get past that, yes, I do enjoy playing my games. Chad says he took screenshots of the back. I don't know. Did I reveal the back of the box by accident? Jacob says that I said there was no actual insert. I actually did say there is an insert in the game. It's just not a game trays insert. Brian says, how many different civilizations will be available in the base box and in the expansions? There are no expansions planned at this box and at this point, and I will soon reveal the number of civilizations, but I haven't said that yet. Shalene says, does the game have a game trays insert? No, it has an insert, but not a game trays insert. Tyler says, when is the review embargo lifted? It will lift on when pre-orders start in early September. Dave says, what are the player colors? I'm trying to remember what the player colors are. Let's see. There's red, purple, white, green, and I think, no, maybe not yellow. There's one not shown on the back of the box that I missed. Oh, blue. Blue is the last one. Jamie says, are there any Easter eggs in Tapestry for future Stonemaier titles? I may have put one in there, one very small one. Dan says, is there variability from different objectives or global conditions? There are no global conditions in the game. There are kind of different objectives that arise for each player throughout the game. And your civilization might push you in a certain direction, but it's your choice to follow that or not. Arthur says, is there religion in the game? No, that's something I'll talk about in the design diary post. I intentionally left religion out of the game. There are philosophies and ideologies, but not religion. Thomas says, how do I differentiate between, and Jonathan keeps asking, is the insert designed to hold sleeve cards? I've seen that question now, Jonathan. I've kind of answered. The insert is not for cards. Thomas says, what's the difference, in my opinion, between empire building and civilization building? Empire building is kind of, in my opinion, kind of flat in terms of it's more troops on the map, you're moving units around, you're expanding an empire in a single slice of time or history. A civilization game is really not about units at all because you're covering a giant scope of history from the beginning of time to the future. And as well as in terms of technology. And so it's less about like the individual units in the game versus your overall expansion over the course of history. Daniel says, what if any of my other games would be similar to this? I wouldn't say any of my games are really similar to this. This has a lot of new stuff in it compared to my games. Let's see. Claudio says, is it the weightiest Stonemaier game? I don't know. I would put it at like a 3 in terms of game weight. Richard says, what had the most impact to improve Tapestry since its conception? I'm always playing a lot of games, so I'm always learning from games. I've compared it a little bit to A Feast for Odin, Mombasa, and Russian Railroads. All those had a positive impact. Actually, playing the Civilization video game had a positive impact. And I would say really the playtesting. Playtesting always has a hugely positive impact, playtesting this game itself. Nana says, is the games, on the game side, I seem to imply Tapestry is similar to Russian Railroads. How is it similar? Similar in terms of track progression and how you build up, how you're scoring only a few points early in the game and you're scoring a bunch of points late in the game. Other than that, I mean, it's a completely different game. It's not Russian Railroads with a Civilization theme. Let's see. Justin says, what games did I draw inspiration from to design the game? Yeah, A Feast for Odin, Mombasa, Russian Railroads. Let's see. Michael says, is Tapestry being shown at Essen? Yeah, Tapestry will be available at Essen from a few different companies. Madigo, Forlan, I think maybe one other company, but definitely those two. Will says, is there a campaign? Nope, it's a game where you build your own civilization over the course of 90 to 120 minutes, and then you put it away, and you start a new civilization the next time you play. Sam says, will the designer diaries go up daily? Yeah, starting with tomorrow will be the designer diaries for Tapestry. We're coming up, we just approached 11 o'clock. So I know I'm going to miss a lot of questions here, but I will definitely be back next week. I'll stay for a few more questions here, but I'm going to miss a ton of them. I'm sorry about that. But it's been wonderful. This is the most people that have ever joined me for one of these videos and most comments on any of these videos. So thank you so much for joining me. I'll be back next Wednesday, and you'll also be able to join me in the Tapestry Facebook group for conversations about the game. And on the Stonemaier Games website if you have other questions as well. Amy says, when will we be seeing more? Yeah, tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll be sharing more information in the first design diary post. Vladimir says, is this box 1 of 25,000? No, Panda sent me box number 9635 out of 25,000. Attila says, usually my biggest issue with Civ building games is snowballing. Is this a concern with Tapestry, or do I have a catch-up mechanism? It's weird. It's not really a game where you feel like you're falling behind. You're kind of just doing good stuff throughout the game and building on that good stuff. We've designed it to be fairly balanced, but I think the best player will win. But I don't think it's that type of game where you'll feel like you're really behind and be discouraged by that, because it's really hard to tell who is ahead of each other during the game. There's a victory point track, but you're scoring so many more points in the later income turns than the first few income turns, so it's really hard to tell who actually is ahead. Let's see. Okay, I have so many questions that there's no way I'm going to be able to cover them today, and I do need to go check in with the Tapestry Facebook group, make sure everything's going okay there. But thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you for your questions. Sorry about all the questions I missed. Thank you for your enthusiasm about Tapestry and about the digital games that we announced today, Viticulture, Wingspan. And I will see you in those various groups and maybe on next week's live chat at Wednesday at 10 a.m. Central Time. Take care.